Hello and welcome to this video on how to cure yourself of mental health suffering. My name is Alec Rasmussen. I'm an ex-professional athlete turned mindset and peak performance coach. And in 2023, I helped over 50 professional athletes destroy their mental barriers and perform and succeed at the highest level. Now, mental health, especially for athletes, is something that is being talked about more and certainly still not talked about enough. And so the biggest difference between me and what you'll find anywhere else in the sports psychology community is that I won't give you a technique. I'm not going to give you another mindfulness activity or another, journaling or gratitude journaling or be aware of your thoughts and all the rest of it, because they are all athlete solutions to athlete problems. And I think that's been one of the biggest things that I've seen both as an athlete and a coach is that everyone deals with athletes as if they're athletes. And what I mean by that is if you have an athlete, then they only have athlete problems. And what I mean by that is when you say an athlete has anxiety, they have performance anxiety. They are worried about how they're going to perform, whether they're going to win or lose, whether they're good enough, etc. Same with when an athlete has depression. It's not just everyday depression. It's depression around the pit in your stomach for the regrets and not feeling good enough and feeling isolated and that heaviness of emotion that you feel. And it's the thinking and the overthinking through your mistakes and regrets and what you could have done better. And likewise with stress, it's not normal stress. Athlete stress is that feeling about wanting to escape whatever you're dealing with right now, whatever situation you're in right now. That feeling of stress is that feeling of wanting to move away from where you are right now. And so the way that I look at it is very different. And I don't look at it from athletes having athlete problems. I look at it at a human being standpoint. I go beyond just being an athlete and dealing with the human being. And so this video is to help you as much as I can without knowing anything about you, and to give you the starting point, the questions to ask, and kind of, I guess, the process to go through as best as I can, again, without knowing anything about you. Because as you'll see, I can't really help you much more than that without knowing anything about you, because my whole thing that is different to everyone else is seeking understanding. And what I mean by that is understanding the human being below the athlete or beyond the athlete. And so when we talk about anxiety and depression and stress, and we're talking about seeking understanding rather than just asking the same old question of how do I deal with anxiety? How do I get rid of depression? How do I stop feeling stressed? When you ask how questions, you get answers. And what I mean by that is the sports psychology society and society as a whole, when you ask, how do I do this? Someone somewhere will give you advice and tell you what to do. And that's been the way it is forever. And so when we talk about seeking understanding, we're starting to ask what questions and why questions rather than how questions. And the reason why is when you understand something to a sufficient level, it will dissolve. So instead of how do I deal with anxiety, when you understand your anxiety to a sufficient level, it will no longer have an effect on you. It will simply dissolve. And I know that sounds quite strange, and you've probably never heard something like that before, but it's possible. And I mean, I've done it, as I said, with over 50 athletes last year. So it is possible. It is very likely when you seek understanding rather than just a technique to try to get rid of it. And you'll see as we go through, it's all about seeking understanding. And so the first question is obviously, what is anxiety? What is depression? And what is stress? Now, this is obviously surface level stuff. You probably have a fair idea of what anxiety is, what depression is, what stress is. You've certainly dealt with it if you're watching this video, so you know it very well. And so anxiety is the nerves and the stress and the worry about the future, and it's all those thoughts about whether you're going to be good enough, whether you're going to achieve what you set out to achieve, and it's all future based. And so anxiety is future-based. And you may have heard this before, you may have not. Depression is the opposite. It's past-based. So it's all those feelings and thoughts and emotions that go into your overthinking around mistakes and regrets and what you should have done better. And it's that pit in your stomach that you feel, that heaviness of emotion, that isolation that you can feel. And the last is stress. Now, stress it's a current or a present-based feeling. And the feeling is wanting to get away from wherever you are right now. Stress is I don't like where I am. I'm dissatisfied with where I am. I want to get out of this. I want to move away. I need to be out of this situation. So it's present-based, and it's that feeling of wanting to just not be where you are right now. And all of these, so when we talk about anxiety being future-based and depression being past-based, we have to kind of go to the next level deeper, because you may or may not have heard this before. And whether you have or haven't is irrelevant, because the next stage is probably something that you've never heard before. And that is, when you think about the future and when you think about the past, you're doing it now. And what I mean by that is, when you think about the future, when are you having that thought? You're having it now. When you think about the past and you're thinking about all your mistakes and all your regrets, you're doing that now, in this moment right now. And so, and then stress on top of that is then the current, like the present situation, but you're trying to move to a different space, a different time and space. And that's the two kind of levels of, obviously, time and space. You have anxiety and depression are time-based, they're past and future, and then stress is the space dimension of it. You're trying to move to a different space because you don't like where you are right now. But all of these are thoughts that you're having right now. And that's really important to understand. These are all thoughts that you're having right now, in this moment right now, which means the problem is not anxiety, the problem is not depression, and the problem is not stress. And that's almost definitely something that you've never heard before. Anxiety is not the problem. Depression is not the problem. Stress is not the problem. They are the symptoms. They are what you feel because of the thoughts that you're having. But one of the key breakthroughs is to understand that all those thoughts, whether it's about the past, whether it's about the future, whether it's a different space that you want to get to, you are having all of that right now. And then the next level past that is then to say, okay, so what is the opposite? Which is obviously where you want to get to. If you don't want to feel anxiety, you don't want to feel depression, you don't want to feel stress, then you want to move to its opposite. So what is the opposite of anxiety and depression and stress? And if you've ever asked this question before, or you've ever read about it, your answer will probably be something like happiness or joy. But I would go further than that and actually say that it's freedom. It's freedom from the thoughts. Would you agree? You know, the opposite of anxiety and depression and stress is not just the opposite feeling, but it is the freedom from the thoughts altogether. Because if you don't, if you are free from the future-based thoughts and the past-based thoughts and wanting to get away from this situation, then what's there to worry about? So freedom from the thoughts, and the opposite is also peace. So then, where do your thoughts come from? If you want to be free of your thoughts, where do they come from? Well, they come from your mind. They come from the mind. And it's kind of the example that I'll use with mental health is thinking about like a barking dog. Does a barking dog really bother you? No, because it can run around, it can bark, it can make all sorts of noise because that's its nature. It's an animal that barks and runs around. But we don't understand the nature of the mind. The mind is a desiring machine. It is a thought-producing machine. but we believe ourselves to be the mind. And so that's kind of in the same way as tying a lead around a dog and then attaching it around your neck. And then as it's running around, it's pulling you all over the place, and you're so attached to it that it's just dragging you through the mud. And that would probably bother you, wouldn't it? If if a dog was running around and you were tied to the other end of it, that could cause you some trouble. And so if you think about, if you were holding a lead to a dog and it's dragging you all over the place, what's the easiest way to get rid of that turmoil? It's to let go of the lead. And that's the same thing with the mind. We are so attached to the mind that we don't just have a lead around our hand, it's literally around our neck. It's like a noose around our neck that's tied to the mind, that we're so attached to it. And the moment that you begin seeing that your mind and you are separate, it begins to loosen that grip. If you just let the mind run without attaching to the thoughts, without attaching to what it's saying about you and who you believe yourself to be, the less effect it's going to have on you. And so to kind of wrap this up, and you spent the last 11 minutes with me. To wrap this up, I want to give you some questions to kind of take away and help you. The first one is, what is the root cause? What is the root cause of whatever you're going through, whether it's anxiety, depression, stress, whatever it happens to be? What is the root cause? Why do you feel that way? Where does it come from? And what I mean by that is not where does it come from in your mind. It's not where does it come from in your body in terms of where you feel the feelings. It's none of that. It is where does it come from in terms of where in your life does it show up? Where in your life does that feeling and those emotions and those thoughts occur? What does it have to do? Does it have to do with the ego and wanting to protect the character that you believe yourself to be, or the person that you believe yourself to be? The next question is then, what purpose does it serve? Now, this probably sounds quite funny to ask, what purpose does depression and anxiety and stress serve? Because no one would think that it serves a purpose. But if you think about it, if it didn't serve a purpose, you wouldn't do it. You simply wouldn't have it. And if you are open and honest and willing enough to separate yourself from the mind and then ask this question, what purpose does it serve? What purpose does those thoughts and emotions and behaviors that go with it, what purpose do they serve? If you're willing to ask that question, you will find some deep answers around what you actually get out of it, because you don't just do it for no reason. You may get frustrated, you may get angry, you may get anxious, you may get depressed, because it gives you something. You may get, even as simple as you may get attention from your parents or your friends or your spouse or from your coach. You may get sympathy. You may get, more attention, more time with them because you're talking about things. And whilst that sounds like it's egotistical, or while that sounds almost crazy, the mind craves that. The mind wants the attention, it wants the sympathy, because it feels good, right? If you really think about it and separate yourself, it feels good. We want those feelings. And so even we do these completely irrational things for really quite logical reasons. It's just that we don't want to admit it because it seems childish, or it seems silly to think that, well, I'm getting frustrated and anxious and acting out because I actually just want attention. That sounds silly to say, but that's what the reality of it could be for you. And that's where, what purpose does it serve? Be open and honest enough to ask that question and really look at it, because that is where a lot of breakthroughs do come through. And so the second last question that I'll give you is, what are the things that, if I understood them about myself, about the situation, about the stress, the anxiety that I'm feeling, would free me of these negative states? So what are the things that, if you understood them, would free you of these negative states? That's the question. And lastly, what is preventing you from feeling the freedom from these thoughts or the peace that you want right now? That's really the ultimate question, is what is preventing you from feeling the freedom from these thoughts, from these emotions right now? And the reason why that is the ultimate question is because it's not about, again, it's not about how do I get rid of anxiety? How do I feel better? How do I get rid of depression? It is what is preventing you from the opposite. And once you understand that all the thoughts that you have now, whether they're future-based or past-based or in a different space, the more that you ask this question, the deeper that you dig down into what is actually preventing you from the peace and the freedom that you want, that you ultimately want. So that's really as much as I can help you without knowing you at all, I can only start you on the journey. I can only give you the questions to ask. I've given you everything that I work with my one-on-one clients. I've given you everything that has helped all of my clients not only deal with or fix their mental health problems, but completely cure themselves of it. And the funny thing is, that question about what purpose does it serve is one that you must take seriously, because if you understand what purpose it serves, you may just work out why you hold on to it. And I know that sounds weird. Why would I be holding on to a negative thought or a negative emotion like anxiety and depression? And the reason why is because it serves a purpose. You may get something out of it that you subconsciously or not wanting to admit that you do, but you get something out of it. And so if you can understand what purpose it serves, you may just get an insight as to what is making you continue to attach to it. Because as I said, if it didn't serve a purpose, you simply wouldn't do it. So that's as much as I can help you without knowing you at all. At this juncture, you really have three options. Either none of this made sense and you just want a technique or a tactic to get rid of your anxiety and to deal with it, make yourself feel better. And if that's the case, then good luck. If you haven't found anything so far, hopefully, if you do find something, let me know. The second option is that you can try to do all this yourself and you can ask all these questions and hopefully get deeper than just surface level answers. And the third is that you can join a community of like-minded, driven athletes who are going through these exact problems and who are openly and honestly discussing them and trying to understand them to the level that they simply dissolve. And that is what I've created, called the SuccessLab Sports Academy. It's the first online mindset and peak performance academy for both professional and aspiring elite athletes to meet on a weekly basis over Zoom to discuss all of these problems, not only that athletes face, but human beings face. And it's everything that prevents the human being from achieving their ultimate capability, whether that's peak performance, peace, freedom, all of it. If you are interested in joining something like that, I've made a whole video on the school platform, which is what I use to run it. You can find that in the link somewhere around this video. And I've made another video explaining everything that's on it. There's a community where everyone can post and interact similar to like a Facebook feed. There's courses that I've created. There's one-to-one access to me. So it's not just the Zoom group calls. It's not just the community. It's not just the courses. It is also one-to-one access to me. So I can actually get to know you and help you out. And you get all of that for $40 a month, $10 a week. So it's only $40 a month, but I say it's only $40 a month. It is $40 a month because if you're not willing to invest even that amount of money into your personal development, into your freedom, into actually curing yourself of something like anxiety, depression, and stress, then you're not going to engage in the calls, you're not going to engage in the community, you're not going to do the courses, and you're not going to get the results. Pretty simple. And that's not the kind of person that we want in our community. So if you want to be part of the community, if you want to destroy, guarantee that you are going to destroy your mental health issues, then click the link around this video, go sign up to school, book in your one-to-one free call with me straight away, and I look forward to meeting you soon.